All right, today we're going to demystify a financial tool that is, let's be honest, as powerful as it is misunderstood: the derivative. You'll find their DNA everywhere, from the price you pay for coffee to the highest echelons of global banking.
So to really get why derivatives matter so much, let's start with a bit of a mystery. What's the one thing that connects the absolutely spectacular collapses of Enron, AIG, and Lehman Brothers? I mean, these weren't just companies going under. These were shockwaves that rattled the entire global economy.
Well, the answer in every single one of those cases involves the misuse of derivatives. Enron, for instance, used these incredibly complex derivatives to basically hide billions of dollars in debt, making the company look way healthier than it actually was. Their role in these scandals really shows you how incredibly high the stakes are when these tools get involved.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to nail down a basic definition. Then we'll get into the main types you hear about: forwards, futures, and options. We'll give a quick nod to a few others like swaps, and then we'll tie it all together by looking at the massive risk and reward that these things represent.
Okay, let's dive right in. What are we actually talking about when we use this word derivative?
At its absolute core, a derivative is just a financial contract whose value is, well, it's derived from something else. And that something else is what we call the underlying asset. Now, that could be a real physical thing, like oil or cocoa, or it could be a stock, a bond, or even something totally abstract, like an interest rate or the exchange rate between two currencies.
You know, I love this quote here. It frames a derivative not just as a piece of paper, but as a promise. And that is such a critical idea because it brings in the human element, the risk. The value of that contract doesn't just depend on the price of oil. It depends on whether the person on the other end of your deal can actually make good on their promise.
And that whole idea of a promise, it leads us perfectly to the oldest and simplest type of derivative out there: the forward contract. You can really think of this as the original handshake deal. So a forward is a totally custom deal, just between two people. You agree today on a price for something that's going to be delivered way off in the future. But because these are private deals, they're traded over the counter, not on some big public exchange, they have one huge glaring weakness: counterparty risk. I mean, what happens if the person you made the deal with goes bust and just can't pay you when the day comes?
That key problem, that problem of trust, is what brings us to our next instrument. Futures contracts were basically invented to solve that exact issue. They are, for all intents and purposes, the regulated, standardized upgrade to the old forward contract.
And this table just lays it out so clearly. While a forward is a custom one-off deal, a future is totally standardized. While a forward is traded privately, a future is traded on a public organized exchange. And here's the big one. While a forward has tons of counterparty risk, with a future, the exchange itself steps in and guarantees the contract.
So how in the world can an exchange make a promise that big? How can they guarantee performance? Well, they do it through this really clever process called marking to market. It's basically a daily settling of the books.
Let's just walk through a quick example. So imagine a Gary producer agrees to sell 1,000 tons of cassava at a fixed price. Okay, but the very next day, the market price for cassava drops. On paper, that producer's contract is now showing a loss. Instead of letting that loss build up for months, the exchange calculates it that day and pulls that exact amount from a special margin account the producer had to put money in. This daily balancing act is genius, really. It stops anyone from getting into a massive, unpayable hole by settling up the wins and losses in little bits every single day.
Okay, now we're going to shift gears completely. Forwards and futures, they're all about obligation. You're locked into the deal no matter what. Options, on the other hand, are all about creating an opportunity, a choice.
An options contract gives the buyer the right to do something, but, and this is the whole point, not the obligation. A call option gives you the right to buy an asset at a price you've already agreed on, and a put option gives you the right to sell an asset at a pre-agreed price.
This right here, this is the magic phrase. With an option, you pay a small fee, it's called a premium, and what you're buying is flexibility. If the market moves your way, you can exercise your right and cash in, but if it moves against you, you can just walk away. All you lose is the small premium you paid for that choice. It's an incredibly powerful way to manage your risk.
So forwards, futures, and options are kind of the big three, the main building blocks. But trust me, the derivative toolkit is absolutely massive. So let's just touch on a few other important ones.
First up, swaps. So imagine you have a loan with a variable interest rate, and you're terrified rates are about to go up. At the same time, another company has a fixed rate loan and thinks rates are going to go down.
A swap lets you two literally swap your interest payments. You get the stability you want, they get the flexibility they want. Everybody wins. Then you've got warrants, which are really just options with a much longer lifespan, and this whole crazy universe of super complex, custom-built instruments that we just call exotics.
Okay, so now that we've got the building blocks down, let's circle all the way back to where we started. The real-world impact of these incredibly powerful tools.
The sheer scale of this market is just mind-boggling. In the recent past, the estimated value of all the derivatives out there in the world has been pegged at over 600 times trillion dollars. I mean, it's a number so huge it's almost impossible to even comprehend. It just shows you how deeply woven these tools are into the fabric of our financial system.
And this really gets to the heart of it all. You see, derivatives have two faces. On one hand, they are an absolutely essential tool for managing risk. They let farmers lock in a price for their crops or help airlines protect themselves from soaring fuel costs. But on the other hand, they can be used for pure high-stakes speculation. They let traders make fortunes from tiny price changes or, if they get it wrong, lose catastrophic amounts of money.
And all of this leaves us with one final big question. Are derivatives a necessary, even brilliant, tool for managing risk in a complicated world? Or are they basically a global casino with the power to bring the entire system crashing down? The reality, as we've seen, is that they're both. And understanding that dual nature is really the key to understanding so much about modern finance.